If you want 2026 to be the best year of your life, the next few moments matter more than you realize. Every January, millions of intelligent, motivated people start the year with genuine intention. They want change. They want progress. They want this year to finally be different. And yet by February or March, most of those plans quietly collapse. Not because people are lazy, not because they lack discipline, but because they rely on the wrong thing at the wrong time. Act 1. Turning the past into a strategic advantage. The regret review, using pain as information. Real growth begins with honesty, and honesty often starts with discomfort. Before planning anything new, you need to look backward. Set aside 10 quiet minutes and identify one regret from 2025. Not a list, not a general category. One specific thing that still bothers you. Something you didn't do, avoided, or mishandled. Writing it down matters. Physically, writing forces clarity. The discomfort you feel isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're paying attention. Now take a second sheet of paper and write two things. The lesson that regret taught you and a small, concrete plan to avoid repeating it in January. This step transforms regret from emotional weight into usable data. Research on regret shows that ignoring it leads to stagnation, while obsessing over it leads to paralysis. The healthiest response is extraction, pulling out the lesson and discarding the pain. Once you've done that, destroy the page with the regret and keep the page with the lesson. That page becomes your guide for the opening chapter of 2026. Regret isn't weakness. It's instruction if you know how to use it. The pre-mortem, stopping failure. Before it starts now comes a surprisingly powerful mental exercise called a pre-mortem. Instead of imagining success, imagine failure. Jump ahead to December 31st, 2026. The year is over, and the thing you cared about most didn't happen. You didn't follow through. You drifted. The year slipped away. Ask yourself why. Psychologist Gary Klein developed the pre-mortem to help teams identify blind spots before projects collapse. When you imagine future failure, your brain becomes far more honest than when you imagine success. Write down every reason your future self might have failed. Maybe you never protected time. Maybe you relied on motivation instead of systems. Maybe no one held you accountable. Maybe life simply crowded everything out. Once you've identified those failure points, design your year to block them. If family time disappeared, schedule it now. If accountability was missing, choose someone this week. If distractions won, remove them before they gain momentum. You can't control every variable, but you can design against the most predictable ones. Choosing a single word to guide the year. Most people overload themselves with resolutions and then wonder why they feel overwhelmed. There's a simpler and more effective alternative. Choose one word to define your year. Not a sentence, not a mantra. One word that captures the direction you want your life to move in and the person you're trying to become. This word becomes a compass. When decisions pile up and attention scatters, you return to it. Psychologists call this a self-cue, a simple mental anchor that brings clarity instantly. When you feel unsure, that word cuts through noise and reminds you what matters. The power of a theme is not in perfection, it's in consistency. Over time, small aligned decisions compound into meaningful change, breaking the year into 90-day seasons. One reason people lose momentum is that a year feels overwhelming. 365 days is too abstract to hold in your mind. Instead, divide 2026 into 4 90-day seasons. 90 days is long enough to make real progress, but short enough to maintain urgency. Research on quarterly goal setting shows that shorter feedback loops increase persistence and improve course correction. At the end of each season, pause, reflect on what worked, reset what didn't. Redirect your energy toward the next phase. This rhythm keeps the year alive instead of letting it blur together. 4 focused seasons will always outperform 1 vague annual intention. By this point, you've created clarity about the past, the future, and what matters most. Now it's time to build structure that protects that clarity. Act 2. Building a structure that actually holds. Protecting the first hour of your day. The first hour of your day shapes everything that follows. Your brain is most impressionable during this time, yet most people surrender it immediately to email, notifications, and other people's priorities. A University of London study found that multitasking early in the day reduces cognitive performance by the equivalent of 10 IQ points. That's the difference between meaningful work and forgettable work. Protecting your first hour is not about productivity, it's about ownership. Use that time for deep work, movement, reading, or creative effort. Anything that moves your priorities forward instead of reacting to someone else's. One protected hour a day compounds into more than 360 hours of focused progress over a year. That alone can redefine 2026. Clearing mental clutter with the 2-minute rule. As the day unfolds, small tasks accumulate and quietly drain attention. Individually, they seem harmless. Collectively, they create cognitive fog. The 2-minute rule solves this problem. If a task takes 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. Don't schedule it. Don't track it, just finish it. This habit keeps friction low and preserves mental bandwidth for deeper work. It's not about getting everything done. It's about keeping your mind clear enough to focus on what matters. Ending each week with closure. Instead of chaos, most people don't actually end their work week. They abandon it. They shut the laptop, rush into the weekend, and physically leave work behind. But mentally, they stay trapped inside it. On Saturday and Sunday, their mind keeps replaying unfinished tasks, forgotten emails, and decisions they never made. Their body is resting, but their brain is still on call. There's a better way. A deliberate weekly shutdown ritual creates psychological closure. Research by Cal Newport shows that when your brain knows there is a clear plan for what comes next, it releases the mental tension it's been holding on to. You don't need everything finished, you just need clarity. Before logging off on Friday, spend 5 minutes reviewing what you worked on, identifying your top 3 priorities for next week, and blocking the first focused hour of Monday for something important. Then end with a simple verbal cue, something like "shutdown complete." It may feel small, but it works because it signals safety to your mind. When your brain feels safe to rest, it actually does. Over time, this ritual transforms weekends from anxious recovery periods into genuine renewal. Taking back control with a weekly reset. If the shutdown ritual closes the week, the weekly reset opens the next one. Every Sunday evening, set aside 15 minutes, not to punish yourself, not to judge what you didn't do, but to regain control before the week takes control of you. Look at your calendar and your task list together. Ask simple but powerful questions. What's essential this week? What can wait? What needs to be protected, moved, canceled, or simplified? Where do you need breathing room? Research from Dominican University shows that people who regularly review their goals are significantly more likely to achieve them. The review matters just as much as the goal itself. This small ritual changes the emotional tone of Monday. Instead of starting the week in reaction mode, you begin with intention. Confusion is replaced by clarity. Stress is replaced by direction. 15 minutes a week doesn't sound like much, but over the course of a year, it buys you hours, sometimes days, of calm focus and forward momentum. Designing your environment to work for you. One of the biggest myths about productivity is that success comes from willpower. It doesn't. Willpower is fragile. It's easily depleted by stress, fatigue, and distraction. Your environment, on the other hand, shapes behavior automatically. Behavioral economists have shown that tiny changes in friction, making something slightly easier or slightly harder, can dramatically influence what we do. This is where environment design becomes powerful. If you want to exercise in the morning, lay out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to write during your first hour, clear your desk and open the document before you go to sleep. If you want to scroll less at night, charge your phone in another room. Order is not about neatness. Order is strategic. When your environment supports your goals, you stop relying on motivation and start relying on momentum. In 2026, don't ask yourself to be stronger. Redesign your surroundings so the right choice becomes the easy one. Using breaks as a performance tool. Most people treat breaks as a reward for work. High performers treat breaks as part of the work. Intentional breaks restore attention, creativity, and emotional energy. Research from Stanford found that people who walked regularly generated significantly more creative ideas than those who stayed seated, especially when walking outdoors. That's why one of the most effective habits you can build in 2026 is a daily 15-minute walk. Not for fitness, not for productivity metrics, but for clarity. Step outside. Leave your phone behind. Let your mind wander. Walking resets your nervous system, sharpens thinking, and improves mood in ways no screen-based break can match. Great thinkers throughout history were walkers for a reason. Movement fuels insight, building motivation. That doesn't depend on mood. Now that structure is in place, you need fuel, something that keeps you showing up when novelty fades. This is where Act 3 begins. Living by the 85% rule. We tend to think growth happens when things feel smooth. In reality, growth happens when things feel slightly uncomfortable. Researchers studying machine learning discovered that systems learn best when they succeed about 85% of the time. At 100% success, there's no challenge. At constant failure, there's no signal. The sweet spot is being stretched but not overwhelmed. The same principle applies to humans. In 2026, aim to live at 85%. Choose goals that challenge you just beyond your current ability. If something feels effortless, increase the difficulty. If it feels impossible, dial it back. That tension you feel isn't failure. It's the sensation of learning. Redefining discomfort as progress. Most people interpret discomfort as a warning sign. In reality, discomfort is often proof you're on the right path. Research from the University of Chicago shows that real learning often feels awkward, effortful, and emotionally unpleasant. When something feels smooth, you're usually coasting. When it feels uncomfortable, your brain is adapting. In 2026, train yourself to reinterpret discomfort. When something feels hard, writing, speaking, learning, having a difficult conversation, pause and remind yourself. This is what growth feels like. Discomfort isn't a stop sign, it's a mile marker. Using accountability without burnout. Accountability works, but only when it's personal. Studies show that sharing a goal with one trusted person dramatically increases follow-through. Not because they nag you, but because you've created a small social contract your brain wants to honor. The key is restraint. Broadcasting goals publicly often backfires, creating a false sense of accomplishment. Instead, choose one person, share one goal, ask them to check in once a week with a single question. Did you do what you said you would do? Simple, quiet, powerful. Tracking progress instead of chasing perfection. Motivation doesn't come from big wins alone. It comes from small progress, seen and acknowledged. Harvard researcher Teresa Amabile found that people perform best on days when they experience small wins, even modest ones. Progress creates positive emotion, which fuels more effort. Create a simple daily ritual. At the end of each day, write down 3 small wins. They don't have to be impressive, they just have to be real. Over time, this practice builds momentum that's hard to stop. When you can see progress, you want to continue, strengthening the people who strengthen you. No one sustains excellence alone. That's why Act 4 focuses on connection and renewal. Building a challenge network. Praise feels good, but it doesn't make you better. Growth comes from people willing to tell you uncomfortable truths. Psychologist Adam Grant calls this a challenge network. A small group of people who care enough to be honest. In 2026, don't ask, "What do you think?" Ask, "What's one thing I could do better?" Invite critique from people you trust. This sharpens your work and accelerates learning. Curating your circle emotions and behaviors are contagious. Research shows they spread through social networks up to 3 degrees. That means your environment includes people. For 2026, be intentional about your circle. Keep 3 roles close: a challenger who pushes you, a cheerleader who believes in you, and a coach who's a step ahead of where you want to be. Energy compounds when it's aligned. Doing less to achieve. One of the most powerful upgrades you can make isn't adding something new. It's removing something old. Create a to-don't list. Every quarter, ask yourself what's no longer worth your time. A meeting that adds nothing, a project you've outgrown, a habit that drains more than it gives. Subtraction frees attention, time, and emotional energy. And those resources are finite, restoring your mind with micro Sabbaths. In addition to movement, your brain needs stillness. A micro Sabbath is a daily 10-15-minute pause with no stimulation, no phone, no music, no input, just quiet. Research on attention restoration shows that even brief moments of stillness reduce stress and restore cognitive capacity. Think of it as clearing your mental cache. This isn't laziness, it's maintenance. Ending the year with gratitude. Finally, anchor your year with gratitude. Writing thank you notes has been shown to increase happiness, reduce stress, and strengthen relationships. In 2026, aim to send 26 thank you notes, one every 2 weeks. Short, sincere, handwritten if possible. Gratitude grounds ambition and keeps success human. If this helped you rethink how to approach 2026, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm this content matters. Subscribe for more practical science-backed videos on growth, focus, and performance. And comment below, which idea are you going to try first? Your best year doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design.